Hello everyone and welcome back to another Star Wars Unlimited deck build where today we're going over a guilty pleasure of mine, and that is my Jabba the Hutt deck. I love this deck so much. It holds such a big spot within my heart because it's so fun and it plays so different to what you've probably played before. When this guy deploys, you can steal one of their cards and capture it, and with something else in your deck you can end up playing it for free. Oh, it's so fun, and that can just swing games outright. So, before we get into the actual deck, Jabba the Hutt, what does he do? When he's a leader, an action, you can exhaust him, you can choose a unit for this phase against bounty. The next unit you play costs one less. It's nice, you can play some units early, but to be honest, the reason he's good is because you've got lots of cards in your deck whose abilities revolve around you having bounties on the field. So you can just activate this, target something outside the field with bounty, and then your unit's effects activate. That is kind of the reason why he's good with that. This whole one cost. It's nice when it comes up, but it's very rare it comes up. But when he's deployed, this is where the Slugman's perfection comes in. So when deployed, another friendly unit captures an enemy non-leader unit. No restrictions. Just capture anything you want and attach it to anything you want. Normally your Jabba's Rancor, because a 9/9 with a captured unit. And then it's got an action as well. Choose a unit for this phase against bounty. The next unit play costs 2 less. That one actually comes up more than you may think, because normally at this point in the game you've got the resources and high-end units to defeat their units to activate this. But the main bit of his power comes from this action, allowing you just to always have a bounty on the field, and then you're, when deployed, capturing a unit, and then with another card in your deck, I can tell you now, Dryden Voss, being able to just play it for free is gorgeous. So a quick tip with Jabba before we get into the deck: just because you've got 7 resources, you shouldn't always play him on 7 resources. He's very much a when character to play, because when you deploy and you just steal a unit on their side of the field, you need to time that really well. So if you bring him out early and you don't really capture anything too meaningful, he's kind of just wasted time. But if you manage to bring him out and capture something at the right time, it swings games. Especially if you've got Dryden Voss in your hand, you can just play it for free. Like, just timing under Jabba is everything. And we've gone for cunning, and of course for cunning we had to go Jabba's Palace, because Jabba, he lives in Jabba's Palace. Big shock, I know, spoiler for the film. But the reason we've gone for it is because mainly Dryden Voss, he's a yellow, so we need him in the deck. I have also got a red version of this deck built, so if you want to ever see that, let me know in the comments. With that, that's our leader and base. Let's get onto these ground units. So kicking things off for our ground units is our 1 cost, and we go for 3 Greedos. It's just a staple within cunning decks. For a 1 cost for free attack, it's just lovely. His ability, by the way, if you don't know, may discard a card from your deck. If it's not a unit, deal 2 damage to a ground unit. It's nice, but I don't use it that often. Anyway, turn 1, the reason why Greedo's so good: you have 2 resources, pay 1, you play out a 1 cost Greedo. They play whatever they want, and then normally you can just play McClunky, returning this to your hand, doing 3 damage to an enemy ground unit, and normally defeating whatever they play. So Greedo is lovely, and he partners up with McClunky gorgeously. We're now going to move on to our 2 cost units, and we've got 3 of Gamorrean Retainers. I mean, it's a Jabba deck, we have to have some Gamorreans in there somewhere, but it's a 3/2 for a 2 cost. Solid, but the reason he's good, if you've got another green, it gets Sentinel. The reason it's so good, because if you do play Jabba later in the game and you've got another green unit with your captured for his ability, you can play Gamorrean and you've got a cheap Sentinel on the field. Lovely. Worst case scenario, you can play him out turn 1 and he's a free attack. Turn 2, normally swinging to the base for 3 damage. Then you can play McClunky because it's an Underworld card. Turn it to your hand, doing 3 damage. Lovely. You're probably going to see a common theme of a lot of Underworld cards. Talking of Underworld units, we're going to move on to our next 2 cost, and that's 3 Crafty Smugglers. Lovely card. Such a good card. You've probably seen it everywhere by now. 2 cost, 2/2, comes out with a shield. The reason it's also so good within this deck is because you can ram it into your opposition, either defeating that opponent's card, and then he hasn't got a shield. You think, oh no, he's just a 2/2. Activate McClunky, bring him back to your hand, doing 3 damage to a unit, and then you can play your Crafty back out and give him another shield. It's just, such a good combo. And because you play so many Underworld units, McClunky's just lovely, as you're probably getting the impression of. That's our 2 cost units done. Let's move on to the 3 cost. But one thing to be aware of with Jabba, he's a 7 cost to get him out. A lot of this deck's power comes around him when he starts coming out and is deployed. So because of that, we need to try and get to 7 resources as fast as possible. And because of that, we need some ramp cards. So we've got 3 Super Laser Technicians. Absolute staple at this point. If you don't know what it does, when defeated, you may put this into play as a resource and ready it. So normally turn 2, you play it. Turn 3, ready up. Swing it to opposition, play as a resource. So you just want to keep getting those resources and get Jabba out. Our next free cost, well, it's kind of free cost. It's also a 2 cost. If you've seen my boss deck, you know what's coming. We've got 3 Reputable Hunter. How's this a 2 cost, you may say? Because if an enemy unit has a bounty, this unit costs 1 less to play. You've got this guy. So they can just play a unit, activate him, giving their unit a bounty, play 2, and you've got a free 4 in your turn 1. That's so good. And this guy can put out a lot of damage quite quickly, and because of the 4 health, he can normally just defeat whatever's on their side of the field and stay up, which is so good. Reputable Hunter is one of the cards I was on about, where just Jabba makes it so much better, because you just always need a bounty on the field. And because of Jabba, you're not costing or losing any cards. You can just tire him out to get one. Like, why wouldn't you? Talking of Jabba's ability, making your unit so much better, is our next free cost, which is Hunter of the Haxian Brood. Oh, just Jabba makes this absolute weapon, because when an enemy unit has a bounty, this unit gains shielded. Like, you can just activate him, give them a bounty, play him. A 4 free shielded is so good. Worst case scenario as well, maybe you haven't got one of your big units on the field, you can deploy Jabba while you've got this card on the field, and you can capture an enemy unit with this while it's still shielded. It's just, oh, I love it. This card I did originally have at 2, so I didn't think it's that useful, but once I played this deck more, I realised how much power this card's got. Do not sleep on it like I did. So spoiler for another card we got later, we've also got Overwhelm Barrage. Worst case scenario, putting an Overwhelm Barrage onto this allows you to put out 6 damage across the board. Like, oh, such a good card. Okay, we're moving on to our 4 cost units, and we're going to start things off with 1 Chain Code Collector. This card I did have 3 of, but I did down it to 2. Yet again, no, downed it to 1. But I won't blame you if you did put multiple in here. So, what does this card do? It's got Ambush, so you can attack with the turn it's played. But the main thing is, on attack, if a defender has a bounty, it gets -4 for this attack. That is insanely strong within this deck. Because with Jabba, you can basically pick whatever they play, activating him, giving him a bounty, then playing Chain Code and basically one-shotting it and it doing no damage back to it. So our next 4 cost unit is 2 Forloms. This is a card I dropped 1 of for a Chain Code Collector. If you want 3 Forloms, just drop Chain Code and put them in. He's basically Chain Code Collector, but he's 4/4 rather than 4/2, and he doesn't get that -4. But the reason Forlom is so good is because, well, we do run Zuckuss in this deck, and being able to give a 6/6 guard +1/+1 and ambush is crazy strong. Worst case scenario, it's a 4 damage ambush card for 4 resources. Like, why wouldn't you play it? Very good card in this deck, and yet again, it suits Jabba because, you know, bounty hunters. By the way, Forlom is Underworld, so you can ambush out for 4. Then he's exhausted. Then you can play McClunky, bring him back to hand, doing 3 damage with McClunky to another unit, and then ambush back out Forlom. Like, oh, it's such a good combo. This deck has so many nice plays because of McClunky. So with Forlom in our deck, it's obvious what we have to play as well, and that's our 5 cost, and that's 3 Zuckuss. Partners up with Forlom so beautifully. This card's got Saboteur, so when this unit attacks, ignore Sentinel and defeat Defender shields, and each friendly unit named Forlom gets +1/+1 and Saboteur. If you have Forlom out, this guy gets Ambush and +1/+1, meaning you have a 7/7 5 cost card. Insane. Another thing that's so good about this card, well, there's loads of things good about this card, but if you have it on the field and deploy Jabba, you can have this capture something, meaning they have to hit into a 6/6 to get it back. Also, Overwhelm Barrage can make it an 8 attack, doing 8 damage across the board. And it's a bounty hunter, so another one of your events, Relentless Pursuit, which lets you capture a unit and put it under a card. And then if it's a bounty hunter, give it a shield. Like, oh, it's just got so much synergy within this deck, and it's insanely strong. Run it, run free. Some of you are probably thinking, well, if you've got 3 Zuckuss, why not 3 Forloms? Like, realistically, yes, but I just really like Chain Code Collector. I'm a bit biased towards it. Moving on to our 7 costs, and probably the best card in this deck, and if I had 3 of them, 1,000,000%, no questions, I would have 3 of them in here, and that is Dryden Voss. Wow. So, when deployed, choose a captured card guarded by a unit you control and play it for free under your control. Insane. It can swing games. How? Because normally you have Jabba on the field. Deploy Jabba, capturing anything you want, except for a leader of course. Put it under one of your units. Pay 7, bring out Dryden Voss and just get it. Oh. So, what have I captured before? I've captured Mauls, I've captured Vaders, I've even captured a Crate Dragon under this. And just having it on your side of the field for free. Lovely. And, do you know what else nice? Because you've only got one of them, and it's only when played, he's Underworld, so you can McClunky him back to your hand and do it again. Because you've got so many capture cards in your deck, there's so much potential for this guy to pop off. If you've got more than one, 100% run more than one. Moving on to our next 7 cost unit, we run 2 Mauls, an absolute Underworld powerhouse. This is one of those cards, if I had another Voss, I'd probably drop them all, but still a very good card to have in your deck. So it's got Ambush and Overwhelm. On attack, I may choose another friendly Underworld unit. If I do, all combat damage that would be dealt to Maul goes to that unit. So because you have a chunky boy with 12 health normally on the field with Maul, you can just put the health onto this guy and it just barely touches him. To be fair to Maul, even though he's just in here because I haven't got another Voss, I'd always keep at least one of them. Just because he's got that synergy of Underworld and Ambush, and he can hit and one-shot so many things. And because he's Underworld, you know what I'm going to say. You can McClunky him back to then ambush him out again. Moving on to our 8 resources, we run 2 Reinforcement Walkers. We run a lot of high-end targets in this deck, but that's because we've got a lot of ramp and we need a lot of power towards the end of the game. So when played on attack, you look at the top card of your deck, either draw that card or discard it and heal free from your base. It's mainly in here because it's a 6/9 body that you can activate with Hutt to then capture something. And on to our final unit, another 8 cost, and a card that surprised me of how good it is within the deck, and I didn't think it'd be this good, is free Jabba's Rancor. Even though it's an 8 cost, it's always a 7 cost for you, because if you control Jabba the Hutt as a leader or unit, it costs 1 less to play, and it's just so strong. Like, I thought it'd be alright. No, like, in practice, it's insanely strong. When played on attack, deal 3 damage to another friendly ground unit, and 3 damage to enemy ground unit. If you play him out and you've got no other ground units on the field, you don't do any damage to your units. So you can just do 3 damage to them for free. Like, oh! My favourite thing to do on 7 resources is normally play out Jabba's Rancor, do damage to their unit, then you deploy Jabba and capture anything under Jabba's Rancor. Because it means they have to swing into a 9/9 if they want it back. Not just that, if they don't take out Jabba's Rancor, you can just swing for base for 9 and do 3 damage to anything on their ground side. It's so good, and I don't think you really appreciate how good this card is unless you play this deck. 7 cost 9/9 is just so strong. I love this card. I've got a real big soft spot for it now after playing this deck, and I really want some hypers and foils now because of this. So that's our ground units done. We're now going to move on to our space units. We don't really play too many space units, but they're still equally as important. Start things off with a 2 cost, and that's 2 Cartel Spacers. This card has really nice tempo, just slowing the enemy down. So when played, if you control another cunning or yellow card, exhaust an enemy unit that costs 4 or less. Do you know my favourite thing to do with this? On your turn 2, you play a Greedo for 1, and you play Spacer out and just exhaust something. Or maybe you've got a Greedo or a Crafty Smuggler on field already, play it out, exhaust something. And because it's Underworld, you know what I'm going to say, you can McClunky it back to your hand and then play it again to exhaust something else. Because you're trying to ramp up and get to your big units fast, being able to just slow them down until that point is very nice. And the more you can do that, the better. Moving on to our 3 cost space units, we've got 2 Consortium Star Vapors. It's just, yeah, again, it's just a solid 3 cost, 3/3, restore 2. If you've got initiative, I just like it in here. I just feel like if you need a spaceship with solid stats, chuck it in, and that restore can come in clutch to slow down the opposition for you, and you can't really go wrong with 3/3. Our next space unit, and another 3 cost, we run 2 Lurking TIE Phantoms, just because when you get it out there, it becomes an issue for your opposition, especially if they haven't got much to do with it, because as you all know from many of my decks, this card, I love it, and I always try and build a counter for it. because this unit cannot be captured, damaged, or defeated by enemy card abilities. So if they haven't got any space units, this can get some serious damage in it. And I have, yet again before, flipped Jabba and actually captured under this because they hadn't played any space units. So I thought, why not? Let's take a ground away and just keep swinging. And then by the time they played a space unit to defeat it, this got like 2 or 3 attacks in, and I already played for game by my Jabba's Rancor. So yeah, it's also just a nice option for capturing enemy cards because they can't take it down with events or upgrades, so they really have to think how they're going to take it out if they haven't got much space, and it does make them start to sweat. But it's mainly in there because it attacks for 4, and you know how good that card is. And to round up our space units is a 110 cost, big jump I know, is a Devastator. Oh. So it's Sentinel Overwhelm, and when played you can deal damage to a unit equal to the number of resources you can control. Because we're a more mid to late game and we're trying to ramp up to big units, playing this and just going boom, deal with this is, yeah, your position's like, okay, well, I lose. What else is so good? If you haven't flipped Jabba yet at this point, you can flip him and give a 10-10 space unit with the unit captured. Like, good luck getting that one back. Yeah, Devastator, beautiful card. If you had 2, I could justify putting 2 in, but I've only got 1. That's our space units done. We're now going to move on to our events and upgrades. The first one needs no introduction. You've seen it about 40 times throughout this deck build, and that is Free McCunkies, which is a 1 cost. You've seen the combos. I've showed you the combos. It's unlimited what you can do. This, just in an Underworld deck, is lovely. Like I said, that turn 1 with Greedo, playing them out, they play a unit, bring Greedo back to hand with McCunky and doing free damage. Just, it's insane. And like bringing your shields back, being able to get your ambushes back, like it's so good. I'm now going to move on to our free cost events and upgrades. We run 2 Relentless Pursuits. I really like this card. So what it does, choose a friendly unit. It captures an enemy non-leader unit that costs the same or less than it. And if it's a bounty hunter, give a shield token to it. The reason I like it so much and the reason I think it's so good, because sometimes your opposition just plays those annoying cards that you just can't get past, or there's a sentinel slowing you up. So you can just play out your Hunter of the Haxian Brood, activate your Relentless Pursuit, so this can capture it and give a shield token to it. Why else is it so good? Because it also gives you options to capture more units to then bring back out with Dryden Voss. So maybe you activate Jabba, capture something, play Dryden, and then you play it for free. Play McCunky and Dryden, bringing it back to hand. Then you can activate this, capture another unit, and play Dryden again, and play it again for free. Like, nuts. Our next event and upgrade. I said it's a ramp deck, and you've only seen 1 ramp card so far, so that is free of resupplies. You know what this card does by now. Free cost, put this event into play as a resource. So normally you just play turn 2, activate it, get another resource. You just want to try and ramp as fast as you can so you can get to your big units, because we got a lot of them, so you can play them as soon as possible to have that presence on board and to put that damage into them. Not just that, like a lot of this deck's power comes to the mid to late game, so you want to get there as fast as possible. And to be honest, you're playing Rancors in your deck. They're really cool. Like, why wouldn't you want to play a Rancor? And our last event and upgrade to complete the deck is free Overwhelm Barrage. Like, it's no surprise. If you watch any of my videos that has green and villainy, you know it's a crutch. You have to put it in here. Give a friendly unit +2/+2 for the phase. Then if it deals damage equal to its power divided as you choose among enemy number of other units. It just clears the board, like, no problem whatsoever. And because you've got so many big units, you've got so many options to put it on. My favourite to put it on, Jabba's Rancor. I've done it multiple times. And I've also done it multiple times on Zuckuss. Like, Zuckuss for 5 cost. It's nuts. So, for instance, in your 5 resource turn, you can play Zuckuss. Turn after, Overwhelm Barrage of it. That's 8 damage across the board. Not just that. If you've got a 4-lom on, that's another +1/+1. So that could be 9 damage. Like, it's so good. So that's our main deck done. With that finished, we're going to go on to the side deck. Just putting a heads up, the side deck, you can do whatever you want with it. I've still experimented with this side deck, and there's still things I'm chopping and changing all the time. But I'll let you know some other suggestions in a bit. With that in mind, let's crack on the side deck. We've got Privateer Skeek, I don't know how to say it. When you control another cunning unit or yellow unit, this card gains shielded. It's just nice having a shielded 2/2 in space. The reason it's in here, because then you can still activate your capturing cards and make a shielded 2/2 in space with it. If you wanted to add more copies of this in, I wouldn't blame you. Or if you want to switch it out for another Cartel Spacer, you can also do that. But I just found that 2/2 shielded sometimes, if you want that extra unit to capture something with, is quite nice. Then move on to our next. We got run 1 confiscate, just because if people do try and activate trade to us on some of our units, or if people do try and bounty us or just have an annoying upgrade in their team, I just like having some form of upgrade removal. Then move on to our free costs. We run 1 relentless pursuit. So we got 2 in the deck. This is the 3rd one if you feel like you need more options for capturing enemy units. Our next one is 2 take captives, because sometimes you feel like you can't capture anything because you need the power of your unit to be more or equal to capture it with this one. So if they're playing big units, you just activate friendly unit, captures enemy non-leader unit in the same arena. Just capture whatever. So maybe you've got Dryden in hand, you just play this and activate Dryden. It's just capture anything. Then in the side deck, we got 3 waylays. I just like having it in the deck if they're playing something that's too tedious for you to get over or too strong. You just bounce it back to their hand if you haven't got anything to capture with. And then to round up our side deck, we got 2 choose sides. It's a 7 cost, it is expensive. However, I feel like it fits the theme of the deck beautifully, because the theme of the deck, all right, you know, capturing and playing it on your side of the field as your unit. Because what this card does, choose a friendly non-leader unit and an enemy non-leader unit, exchange control of those units, so you can just take something. What I really like to do, and what I have done, is you play out your Greedo for 1 cost, then you activate choose sides and just take whatever and they have a Greedo. Like, it's beautiful. And because Greedo only costs 1, you can do it on 8 resources, and because you're ramping, you can get there pretty quick. So that is the side deck over, and that is my Jabba the Hutt Cunning deck. Like I said, if you want to see the red Jabba deck, please let me know in the comments. For matchups, this is quite good against other ramp decks if you can control the tempo well. That's the important part. If you're not drawing very well, then you can get in a lot of trouble quite fast. Against aggro, it really depends on what you draw, because I found Hunter the Haxian Brood can just wipe out like entire fields of aggro because it's just shielded, and then McClunky wiping something else out and playing it back out with shielded, hitting something else again. But you really do need to get the right cards against it. Against the really hard control decks, you do struggle because they just keep defeating your units, because there's no point having a Jabba's Rancor out 9/9 and they just go rivals forward, defeat it, and then they get their captured unit back. So just be aware of that. But yeah, so matchups, really fun deck. Enjoy playing this deck. Like I said, it's guilty pleasure. It's just a bit of fun at the end of the day, and I can't wait for the next set so I can make my Jabba deck even better. If you make any changes to this deck, please let me know in the comments. Also, let me know what you think about this deck in the comments, because I'm very intrigued to see what you guys would do with it. Thank you for watching my video, and hopefully I shall see you in the next one.